Let's use this table of values to answer question A, where we want to find h of x, and we're told that h of x is this composite function, f of g of x, and then our goal is to find h prime of 3. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this composite function by highlighting the outside function, f of x, in red, and I'm going to highlight the inside function in blue, which is that g of x. And so before we find h prime of 3, let's first figure out what the derivative function is. Let's just figure out what h prime of x is. So h prime of x is the derivative of this composite function. And the derivative of a composite function requires that we use the chain rule. So recall that the chain rule says that we're going to take the derivative of the outside function. So I'm going to use that prime symbol, f prime, the derivative of the outside function. And then we're going to multiply it times the derivative of the inside function. So we're going to multiply it by g prime of x, and that's what the chain rule tells us to do. So h prime of x is f prime of g of x times g prime of x. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's start with this part here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and substitute in 3 for all of those x's. So f prime of g of 3 times g prime of 3. And then we're going to go to the table to find all of these values and then just do the substitution. So again, I'm going to start with what is g of 3. So going to the table here, when x is 3, g of 3 is 4. So that means that I have f prime of 4 times g prime of 3. Okay, and then now I'm going to go to the table and then go, okay, well, what's f prime of 4? So when x is 4, f prime of 4 is 7. So this part is 7. And then going to the table, let's also go ahead and figure out what is g prime of 3. So when x is 3, g prime of 3 is 8, and then we're multiplying that together. So h prime of 3 is just 7 times 8, which is 56. And so h prime of 3 is 56. Let's take a look at part B, which is very similar, but here, notice that our composite function, we have g of x as the outside function, and then f of x is the inside function. So before we find h prime of 3, let's first just figure out what h prime of x is. So let's take the derivative of that composite function. So to take the derivative, we have to use the chain rule. And the chain rule says we're going to take the derivative of the outside function, so that g of x, so we're going to do g prime of f of x. And then once we take the derivative of the outside function, the chain rule says then we have to take the derivative of the inside part, the inside function. So let's go ahead and do that. And then now I can substitute in 3 for x. Okay, so this is going to require that I do g prime of f of 3 times f prime of 3. Okay, so let's just start with what is f of 3. So f of 3, when x is 3, f of 3 is 5. Okay, so that's 5. And then I still need to find g prime of 5 times f prime of 3. Okay, so then now let's go to the table and go, what is g prime of 5? So when x is 5, g prime of that is 11. So this guy is 11. And then f prime of 3, when x is 3, f prime of 3 is 6. So then let's multiply that together. So h prime of 3 is 11 times 6, or 66, and that's our final answer down here. Okay.